Welcome back to Horns Eye Studios for another episode of 666 Seconds of Murder. That means each one of these videos is less than 666 seconds or 11 minutes and 6 seconds. So let's not fool around. Let's get right to it. But before we do, don't forget to smash that like button. Drop a comment below. It helps the video get out there to more people just like you. And if you're not a subscriber, please consider doing that today before you leave. It helps the channel grow, and I do appreciate it. It is important to remember that this video is for informational purposes only. These are just my opinions and speculation. I'm not an expert. I'm just using some good common sense to analyze this case. I'm not saying anyone is guilty of anything. Also, everything that I say is alleged. Now, for this episode, I'd like to discuss the Idaho 4 case and the questions surrounding the two traffic stops of Bryan Kohberger along I-70 in Indiana on December 15th, 2022. Many people following this case have wondered exactly what were the police doing. Was it just a sheer coincidence? Well, if you talk to any police officer, especially one who's done any investigations, they'll tell you there is no such thing as a coincidence. So this is going back to nearly the very beginning of the case. We know that Bryan Kohberger and his father were driving from Pullman, Washington to Albrightsville, Pennsylvania for the Christmas holiday. This was a 2,500-mile trip. Bryan's dad flew to Washington and made the drive with his son. It's a nice fatherly thing to do. And despite the guilters who love to try to find some sort of negative reason why he would have done that, I mean, I do know that the trip was planned out, so this was not some kind of last minute thing. I think it was well before the crimes even happened. Now, we know that Bryan drove out on this route through Colorado, which did add some miles to the trip, and many have speculated that there was some sort of evil reason for that, or that the owners of the house at 1122 King Road lived in Colorado at the time, and maybe he was going to see one of them for some reason. Who knows? I mean, I did a video on the Colorado route and posed several different scenarios, and many in the comments, had mentioned that there was this severe weather in the north that would have made the likely choice take this more southern route through Colorado, and that makes a lot of sense. It did add like 300 miles to the trip, but I mean, who wants to drive a 2,500-mile trip through a blizzard? So the first of the two Indiana traffic stops was on I-70 eastbound, just outside of Indianapolis, by an Indiana state trooper. And the reason they said was Bryan was following too close. Then 9 minutes later, he stopped again in I-70 in Hancock County by a sheriff's deputy this time, also following too close. That definitely struck me as odd. I mean, I know some people drive very aggressively, and when you're in a hurry, I mean, that kind of stuff tends to happen. But he was on a 2,500-mile trip with his dad. I'm not seeing him flooring it and riding up on people. He wasn't pulled over for speeding or reckless driving or anything like that. And I mean, I've driven this highway myself in this very same area not that long ago. And this happened on a Thursday. It was daytime. I don't know what time of the day, more than a week before Christmas. So I'm not seeing some kind of major traffic jam in any of the video that I've seen of this. I thought they were bogus stops, to be honest with you. And the fact that they were 9 minutes apart is really, really odd. And he was given a warning each time, also odd. Now, I did a video and a live also about parallel construction when it comes to law enforcement. And what that means is that the police have a confidential informant that they're trying to protect. So they'll want to hide them from the public and the evidence that they've provided. So what they do is they come up with some other reason, let's say pulling over a narcotics dealer, hoping to find some product in the trunk. So when it protects the informant and the public never finds out about the evidence that the snitch provided to the cops that put them on the trail of the suspect. So, and it's done all the time. It's done all the time. And I could see why police use informants this way. I mean, it makes sense, and why they would want to protect them. Because if those guys start turning up deceased, that's definitely going to limit the amount of people willing to do that. Okay. It's just good business. And I talked to Mick, the Australian police officer I interviewed for a True Crime Deep Cuts, and he said he used confidential informants all the time. And in Australia, they're numbered, so their name never appears in any documents whatsoever. Now, could it be that those 2 traffic stops were part of some parallel construction in the Idaho 4 case? I mean, most of us in this community feel there's at least one confidential informant. Someone said to law enforcement, that would have put them on Bryan's trail. Who knows what it was? We just don't know, or who it was. We have no idea. We can speculate, of course. Was it Bryan Kohberger? Was it Emma or Demetrius, or maybe Dylan or Bethany? I mean, there's so many options, really, and probably others we don't even know exist. But whoever the informant is, it's very possible the FBI called the Indiana State Police and told them to pull Bryan Kohberger over in hopes that he would find some sort of reason to get him out of the car and search the car. Something maybe in plain view, like a knife or some narcotics, or maybe cuts on his hands, bruises on his face. I mean, who knows, right? There was probably something very specific that they would have been looking for, making small talk about that standoff with Bryan Kohberger back in Pullman, Washington, which is just bizarre beyond belief of the coincidences with that. That's other episodes I've done about that whole situation. It is possible the second stop was to confirm something, or possibly check for something else that the first officer didn't locate. Really hard to tell, but I don't see those 2 stops being real. Like many parts of this case, just too strange to believe that he would get pulled over twice in 9 minutes on a 2,500 mile trip through every time zone in the United States for the exact same thing, resulting in a warning both times. That is just too crazy for me to believe. Now, I do think that there is some parallel construction going on in this case. I feel that the gag order and all the closed door hearings are a sign that that is true. They're protecting at least one confidential informant, possibly more. I think the Moscow PD investigation and the limited stuff that we know of is more of a smokescreen to keep us guessing, to go down all the rabbit holes, to try to figure this out, when in reality, the real investigation is going on at the federal level behind the scenes, which is the reason why we don't have any evidence, because for whatever reason, they're keeping it hush-hush. Either it's because it's weak or they don't have it. I don't know. But I think there's some sort of sleight of hand going on here, that the real investigation is just never going to be known. And this other stuff with Brett Payne and all of that stuff at the Moscow PD level is more just a show. Now, I will not be doing a live this Sunday due to some family plans for the Memorial Day weekend, but I will be back again on Sunday, June 2nd from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Central. Of course, I'll be talking Idaho 4, working on possibly a guest. I'm not sure yet, but you won't want to miss that one. Comment below with your thoughts. As always, I love to hear from you guys. I do want to say thank you to my friends at the Horns High Club. You guys are awesome. I hope you guys enjoy the perk of getting the videos early as soon as I upload them instead of having to wait. And I do appreciate your support, and I appreciate all of you guys that watch these videos. And we'll see you next time for another episode of 666 Seconds of Murder.